So Candyman 2021 was our first reintroduction to the Candyman franchise since 1999. So it's been 22 years since we've been in this universe. For me, I had never even heard about this movie or this franchise until this movie was announced. So last year when the pandemic first hit, I watched the second movie and the first movie kind of within the space of a week. The first movie I thought is one of the greatest, most underappreciated, underknown horror movies. I thought Candyman as a villain is a fantastic idea and a fantastic villain, and his movie was one of the most disgusting and creepy horror movies I've ever seen in my life, and I'm dying to get a pop vinyl of the Candyman. The sequel I found to be disappointing. It did some stuff I enjoyed, but overall I found it to be a disappointing and a bit of a letdown as a sequel. And I think the third movie, which I only watched for the first time last week, I put that one on hold for so long, just it wasn't on any streaming service, it wasn't an easy movie to find, but I found that movie to be dog shit. That movie was god awful from start to finish. I really did enjoy it. I felt for the majority of it was kind of a porno, but you didn't come here for me to talk about the other movies. So I went into this movie I was a bit nervous in the fact that seeing the second and third, none of them were able to capture the magic that the first one had. But I also went in with higher expectations because I thought they're going back to this movie or this franchise for a reason. It's not like the Candyman franchise is a well-known franchise. They must have some sort of a story to be going into doing a remake or slash reboot of this franchise. So I went in with high but also low expectations, and I was very happy. It is definitely better than 2 and 3. I'd actually even say it's better than 2 and 3 put together. I feel like if you took the best from 2 and if you can find anything of the best of 3, put them together, this is still a much better movie and just a much better sequel. I feel like this is like when I first saw the first movie, when the way the first movie ends off, I was kind of expecting our sequel to be following that, so I was disappointed that our movie or our part 2 didn't follow what part 1 finished off with. But I feel like this movie is not the perfect continuation, but it's the best continuation you can do of the first Candyman movie. The way the first one ends off, I thought would have been a great sequel, but they never done that. But so many years later, this is the only thing you really truly could do as a direct sequel to the first movie. And judging that this is a direct sequel, it works really well as that. One of the weakest elements of this movie is that it doesn't really have a definitive bad guy. Of course, it is Candyman. You look at the first movie and I thought Tony Todd was amazing as Candyman, but in this movie it feels like they didn't want to kind of challenge Tony Todd straight away. So you look at, you see the silhouette of Candyman a lot, you see the back of his head, you see the hook going up, but for the majority of the movie you don't see a face of the Candyman, and I feel like the movie definitely suffered because of that. The main lead in this movie, I don't know his name, I can't pronounce his name, but I actually really enjoyed him in the role. I really liked him throughout the movie. As you're watching him do a downward spiral in his life, and you're looking at him going, I feel really bad for you. He's got the same kind of storyline that Helen had in the first movie, where you're watching her go into a deeper spiral of just destroying her life. You're watching him do the same in this movie, and you feel for him, and not only him, but you feel for his family around him, his girlfriend's family. You feel for everyone around this character, and I really loved it. But the standout for me was, of course, Coleman Domingo, who, of course, if you know my channel, I'm a big Walking Dead fan, so it was great to see him in something on the big screen. But he wasn't a standout because of that. I just thought he was the biggest standout character in the movie, the most interesting character in the movie, especially as his character goes on. He's just so interesting, and I really loved his character throughout the movie. And this Coleman Domingo, amazing performance. As I said though, I was disappointed that we didn't get to see like Tony Todd as Candyman, or just someone taking up that role as Candyman. But even though we didn't get to see someone, the kills were okay. The first main kill in the movie we got, I thought was great, but the rest of them, it was kind of you see it in mirrors or you see on the ground. You just didn't get to see a lot of the kills where, like, if you look in the first movie, you get someone gets like the hook to the face. You don't really get that in this movie besides the first kill. So I thought the kills were quite tamed for this movie. That I was kind of going in with higher expectations of seeing a lot of people getting their faces ripped off with a hook, but we did not get that as well. They've got a lot of kind of racial messages throughout this movie, where I feel like in this movie it was just shoving it in your face. They were really shoving it down your throat, saying here's a message, here's what you shouldn't do. They were just shoving it in your face the entirety of the movie, where in the original movie it was always there, but they never stopped to talk about it, but you could always tell that it was a storyline that was happening. But in this movie you see our characters literally sit down at points in the movie and discuss it, where I felt like that kind of made the movie slow down and stop completely. That was just something as well I didn't like. But one of the things I did love was the backstory of how the Candyman story was told. The way it was told, I loved. It wasn't like seeing the way in the other movies you actually got to see the backstory to the original Candyman. You see how it happened. In every movie it's a completely different kind of backstory because it's a myth. It's going around, the story is always changing. But in that one we actually got to see footage of it. But this one, it's told in kind of like the way in Harry Potter Deathly Hallows Part 2, or the Part 1. I think it was Part 1, when the story of the Hollows was told, and it was kind of told with a paper up against a light. This was kind of told in this movie as well, and I really loved the design of the way the backstory was told. But as a whole, for me, Candyman 2021, I thought was a really great movie. I am looking forward to rewatching it. I did enjoy it a lot more than I actually was kind of going into. As I said, I had high expectations, but also quite low expectations. So my expectations were quite middle, is probably the best way of saying it. So I went in, I was going in hoping it'd be better than Part 2 and Part 3. It did. It wasn't as good as the first one. I think the first one is still one of the best horror movies in my opinion. But this one did not live up to those expectations of the first movie, but it did exceed 2 and 3. It is not my favourite horror movie of the year. My favourite horror movie of the year still does go to A Quiet Place 2. That is my favourite movie of the year, so it's going to be hard to try and beat that one. But it is my second favourite horror movie of the year. For a while it was the Wrong Turn movie, and now Candyman. Hopefully it can be taken over by Halloween. I'm not saying this is a bad movie, but I would just like to see a better horror movie this year. But Candyman 2021, you don't need to see the original, but it does help to see the original. So if you can, definitely go out and see Candyman 2021, just because I'd like to see more of this Candyman character. I'd love to see more of the franchise moving forward. I would love to see a 5th installment in this franchise. So if you can, definitely go and see Candyman on the big screen. And let me know your thoughts of Candyman in the comment section down below. If you've already seen it, click that subscribe button to see more horror content from me in the future. I've got a review of all of the rest of the Candyman movies. I'll leave a link to the playlist at the end of this video. So if you want to see them, click that link up above. And as always, thanks for watching.